As you will be well aware, we've been piloting arrangements for the council meeting, which sort of see a 2 p.m. start, a hybrid format, the capacity to take the meeting over two evenings or 2 afternoons, and also access to the public gallery for a limited number of the public. There are slightly different arrangements in place for committees, and indeed one of the substantive issues is that the public do not have access at the moment, and there's restricted access for members. In light of sort of the further move to normalisation and recent experiences in terms of the pilot, and probably to move towards a more standardised approach in terms of the participation by members, access to the public, hybrid format and time limits, there are a number of recommendations. Firstly, again, and it's very much subject to your views, that the current pilot arrangements for the hybrid monthly council meetings, including the start times, time limits and media and access, are extended indefinitely subject to legislative provision and public health advice. That approach in terms of the public and media access, time limits and the hybrid format are extended to include all the committee meetings from the 1st of February. That all members are encouraged to attend meetings physically, including non-members if a member so desires, and that in both the chambers, public access is in future unrestricted, subject to seating provision, and obviously any risk assessment in COVID context. Thank you, members.
Thank you for that, Ellen. Right, Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Ellen, for the report. Maybe it's just me, but I was a wee bit confused at some of the language, and I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. So, we've obviously got the current pilot arrangements. We're asking for the time limits and public media access arrangements to be extended indefinitely, but then at 5.4, public access is restricted at both the Guildhall and Strabane chambers. Yes, unrestricted. So is one of those for full council meetings and the other for committee meetings? Maybe it's just me reading it and I haven't got my head around it, because it would certainly be my view that we need, as much as possible, we need to get back to full normalisation, because we've had a number, I think it's fair to say, a number of us have been contacted over a wide period of time, and it's actually been mentioned at committee meetings here that there are some issues coming up where the public want access. They want to be able to come into the public gallery. So it's, again, if that's what we're saying, fantastic. But if that's not what we're saying, then I think that needs to be considered, because especially over the last number of months, whether that be the hardship fund or some other aspect of things, I think it's fair to say we've had a lot of people who are very interested in coming on and hearing what we're saying. So I would certainly be in favour of that. But if we could get some clarification, please, Ellen, thank you.
I'll pass you over to Chief Executive.
Right, yeah, just for clarification, it's unrestricted access, subject to physical constraints within the rooms.
Yeah. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thanks to Ellen for the report. Just a wee query in relation to it. Do these changes apply to the planning committee and the operation of the planning committee? It's just it isn't contained within the report, so I'm assuming the unrestricted nature of it we would revert back to the way the operation was prior to the pandemic. Just for clarity in relation to that.
Yeah, subject to Ellen telling me something different, just to avoid any confusion, it's to go back to the way it was, essentially, with the only difference being that members have the option to come into meetings in a hybrid fashion. And so at times do those who are making deputations, or they will be given the option. The preference will be to be physically present, but they'll be given the option.
Through you, Mayor, just to again further clarify, we the concept is to open up the meetings to public access and allow people to be at meetings in the galleries. Under the current arrangements, we are restricting access in this chamber, and there's no access in the Strabane chamber. So what we were doing was winding the clock back to pre-COVID, and indeed taking out, as John has highlighted, the seating restrictions in terms of numbers. So therefore, all the committees and the council meetings should facilitate, as I say, the pre-COVID access, basically subject to obviously members' wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks to Ellen for the report. I want to just try and clarify something as well. So my apologies. 5.1 of the recommendation reads that the current pilot arrangements for hybrid monthly council meetings are extended indefinitely. And then 5.2 reads that this approach is extended to include committee meetings. As I understand it, the pilot arrangements for monthly council meetings was that council meetings begin at 2 o'clock. If that's been extended to committee meetings, does that now mean the committee meetings will begin at 2 o'clock? If you read it, that's what you could potentially take from it. It's not going to be a deal breaker for us either way. We just want to know what time we're supposed to be here, because it would be important. Other than that small point of clarification, Deputy Mayor, we're happy to support the recommendations.
Through you, Mayor, 5.1 doesn't make reference to the start time of the meetings, but as I say, hopefully I made reference to it in the actual presentation. But as I say, in terms of the council meetings, it's piloted at 2 p.m. If members wish to go forward with 2 p.m, we're quite happy to facilitate. And equally so, if members wish to continue with the current start time of 4 p.m. for committees, again, this is the opportunity for members to shape our direction going forward. Certainly, in terms of the recommendations were that the council meetings follow the current pilot, start at 2 o'clock, are in hybrid format. Are spread over 2 meetings and have public access. And in terms of the committee meetings, the recommendation going forward is, again, start at their normal time. They have full public access. They're in hybrid format. And as I say, they're time limited in terms of the 4-hour benchmark. Thank you.
Yeah, it was just that point of clarification. As I say, we're happy to support the recommendation. We're content that the committees begin at 4 o'clock. But it was just to find out the exact starting time.
Okay, Alderman Hosler.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And, interesting point raised by Councillor Tierney. And it's 2 o'clock. Well, it's 2 o'clock. Dead on. Let's get on with it. But secondly, as members know, one of the things discussed within the whole financial situation is increased usage of this building, whether it be increased usage of the main hall or tourism, or tourists coming in, etc. And I suppose one of the ailments of that would be the fact of the chamber being used so often, particularly with committee meetings. So, and given the tremendously excellent work that has been done on improving the IT connectivity in the Strabane chamber, was there any consideration of all committee meetings being held in the more homely Strabane chamber?
Through you, Mayor, I would advise that in terms of all of the meetings were there, the chamber in Strabane doesn't have the capacity to, sort of address the council meetings.
Chair,
But certainly
I'm
an
not
answer.
talking about council, I'm talking about 14,
no,
14-member committees.
No, I think in fairness and in direct response, no, it wasn't considered in 2019. The council at that stage had developed an approach to its meetings, and one of those aspects of it was that front-facing service delivery directorates would rotate, and that the sort of the GSPs and would retain sort of their meetings in the Guildhall. But again, if I'm quite happy to hear members' views if there's any sort of dissent there. Thank you.
Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, we welcome having council meetings and committee meetings go back to what you would call normal, in the sense that we are physically here, if possible, and that they're opened up to the public as well, and that we have hybrid available for anybody that wishes to use that. I think that that's key coming out of this. And look, we do have a democratic deficit because we don't have Stormont. I'm not thinking that because we are now saying that the council meetings are open for business, we're going to get lots of people coming here. But I think we should make it very clear that people want to come and watch the proceedings, they're more than welcome to do that. I'm surprised sometimes that we don't see schools here more often. Maybe, students even here for an hour to watch proceedings. I think that that's beneficial for people or other organisations that might want to see council in action, so that the mystery of how the council works is demystified for people, especially now with Stormont not functioning at all, and very little likelihood of it coming back anytime soon.
Thank you for that. Councillor Harkin will be given the Wayne's nightmare, so I think that's right. Okay, folks, right, so that's all the confidential. Can we, can I have a proposer and seconder to go back into open business, please? Thank you very much, Alderman Wark and Councillor Sean Mooney. Sorry. Oh, we're on. Working in it, right. Right, it is just notices of motion. And first is Councillor Doyle. Go ahead, Councillor Doyle. Have you got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Heaney.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Just to declare, not just as a member of the board of Men's Action Network. Deputy Mayor, the organisation, Men's Action Network, has done some fantastic work over the years in this city and district, and indeed beyond, supporting men in difficulty, whether that be through a number of programmes or through its bespoke counselling service. Thousands of men in this city and district have gone through its doors in a range of premises. And like many organisations around the city and district that offer support for the public who are charities, it is struggling, particularly not only with the volume of work that it carries out that it wants to maintain, but also, of course, with regards to the deficit of leadership that we have in Belfast, being able to ensure that these organisations get as much support as possible. I know that the director of MAN had presented to us some time ago. I'm not sure whether that was full council or health and communities, but to give members an idea of the numbers that are being supported by the organisation. Just last year, across a range of programmes, over 1,000 men were supported in programmes around engaging with their families in terms of building relationships with children. And almost 800 men were availing of counselling services And we all know, I'm sure every one of us in this chamber knows that counselling, particularly from a perspective when you're referred by your GP, some people are waiting 8 and 9 months, if not longer. So to be able to access this service, sometimes in crisis situations for men across the city and district, is absolutely essential, and is effectively doing the work at times of the health service. The organisation also supports families and partners of men who, again, are going through difficult times. The primary reason why I've worked with the organisation and brought this motion on their behalf today is because if we lose it, we are losing decades of knowledge with regards to access to services. It's not an organisation, I have to say, that shouts its work from the rooftops, because being a man, and I'm happy to say it, it's harder for us to open up at times with regards to problems that we're having in our lives, especially if those are, addiction issues, anger issues, for example, and a range of others. It's an established name, it works and is trusted by partners in GP services, in primary care and in secondary care right across the West and into Fermanagh indeed. And what they ask effectively is today is for us to stand with them, as we've done with so many other organisations, and say to lose this organisation in this city and district would be a great detriment to the male populace. And
Sir Joy, can I ask you to bring your...
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And just to call on the Department for Communities, or indeed a joint funding stream, as I've outlined, to step in to save this organisation. Because if we don't, we are putting men and families at risk of not being able to access services in the district. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Heaney.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. And thanks to Councillor Doyle for bringing this particular and important motion forward today. We'll certainly be fully supporting it. I've worked with and know the Men's Action Network for quite some time now, and all of the vitally important work that they do that Councillor Doyle has sort of outlined there, so I'll not repeat the figures, but just to say they have supported over 150 men in the last year alone, and probably what could be described as a hard-to-reach group. So it's important work, and I agree certainly with Councillor Doyle's remarks that it should be supported and it should be funded. It's hopefully a positive development that the Department of Communities now at least has a budget, which wouldn't have been happening earlier because of the dearth of leadership coming from the DUP and their lack of attendance at Stormont. So we're hoping now that the Department of Communities can look at this more favourably and that some support funding can be put in place. So happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Doyle for proposing the motion. And I'm happy to speak on this on behalf of the SDLP to demonstrate our support for Men's Action Network. And we totally recognise the support that's provided by Men's Action Network to men right across this city and district and further afield. They're a committed organisation that does sterling work to promote and enhance men's health and well-being. And, us men, we're not great at asking for help, but when we do, Men's Action Network is at hand to provide that support. Unfortunately, they're in a position where funding is an issue, and they need to get to a position where they have funding certainty and funding clarity. So we fully support the calls for financial support from the Department for Communities or a cocktail of executive departments. So happy to support the motion, happy to support the organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Doyle for bringing the motion forward. And on behalf of the Alliance Party, I want to speak that we are fully supportive of this motion and the work that Men's Action Network do, and has to be commended. The numbers we see here are just the tip of the iceberg of the great work that they've actually done for Northern Ireland and our own city and district. I've seen firsthand the campaigning that they've done around domestic violence victims, and in particular domestic violent male victims, the campaigning that they've done around coercive control. I've referred men who needed support for being homeless or split from their families and not knowing where to go. So they have a waiting list constantly for counselling, because they do provide a vital service to our city and district, and that is as far as Castleberg and Limavady. I have people coming in to see Men's Action Network. I know they're trying to build confidence in our young men, as well as tackling what looks like a good relationship and conversations around informed consent. They're also strong campaigners, like I said, about tackling coercive control, and they've provided information training for anyone that was contacting them on coercive control, and understanding what that looks like, and understanding whether or not you had some of those behaviours, non-verbal language. I think the work that they do is amazing, and I know that they worked hand in hand with the Justice Department and had a conference here on coercive control. So I do hope that the department and other agencies do come together to try and support this charity, because without them it would be a bleaker day within our city and district. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And People Before Profit are happy to support this motion, and we welcome Councillor Doyle bringing it into the chamber on behalf of Men's Action Network. And I think that the good work of Men's Action Network is well documented, and it's unfortunate that another organisation that does very good work and is very needed in our district and elsewhere is now facing funding challenges. And I think that this is the harrowing situation that we're in, where whether it is youth services, Men's Action Network, this council, that over and over again, financial decisions that are being made in Westminster or Stormont are having a massive impact on the ground. Organisations like the Men's Action Network have done taken bold steps in terms of some of the issues that they've addressed. And that's what we need. So whatever we can do as a council, and whatever we can do as People Before Profit, in terms of pushing back and helping and campaigning to ensure that they have the funding that they need, not just to survive but to thrive, we will be happy to back that and support them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Alderman Wark.
Thank you for the amendment, Deputy Mayor. Fully support the motion brought forward to us, and the Men's Action Network are absolutely vital here. I think most of the members here are aware that the very sad and tragic news happened once again, where we've a major black cloud over this city last night, and our thoughts, I'm sure, are with the young man's family. So it's obviously not way one charity here. It looks like to me it's way a lot of charities. We have a hell amazing charities out here supporting the citizens, and there's people in crisis throughout the city and district. You have the Deutsche Vita project there, which does amazing work, and I know every charity out there at the minute is struggling, and any charity will come forward. I'm sure all the members here and council officers will give their 100% support. They're vital, and it's very vital at the minute for the service they give to people in need. So fully support this motion forward today. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Devaney, online.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me in. And on behalf of the DUP, we have no problem in supporting this notice of motion here before us today, brought forward by Councillor Doyle. I think many of us in this chamber, I'm sure nearly every one of us, will know of or hear of the good work that Men's Action Network and the services, the great services that they deliver. And it's a very, very vital service for men. Many, I talk to people who avail of their service, and they're well looked after and well treated. At a time when there is an issue in around mental health per se, with the health service, waiting lists and stuff like that has been going on for decades. It's important that we do all we can as a council to support the organisation. and support its financial asks here to keep the organisation moving forward. And I know, look, it's an ever-growing situation and around mental health with men. And I remember their presentation that they brought forward not so long ago, an excellent presentation, delivered all the stuff, the work that they do. And it's getting awareness out there as well. This group is getting awareness out there for men who are having difficulties, that there is help at the end of the line, and Men's Action Network are delivering the services to help those people in need. But very, very happy to support, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Raymond Barr.
Thank you, Mayor. The support Men's Action Network gives us invaluable, especially in counselling. Counselling gives us a safe and confidential space to talk to a professional about issues and concerns. Men traditionally shy away from vulnerable conversations, and that leads to problems in the family, problems at work, etc. Given the lack of statutory support available at the minute, it's important this external support is maintained. So I'd like to thank Councillor Doyle for bringing the motion. I'm delighted to support it.
Thank you for that. And finally, Councillor Donnelly.
Good Chair. Chair, just like to put on record my support for the motion and thank Councillor Doyle for bringing it. Mental health problems seem to be on the increase, and given the climate that we're enduring at the minute, there's a lot of hard times, and that no doubt contributes to poor mental health. We have the added factor of the health service, which is, in my opinion, being dismantled by stealth. And, for a large number of men, the help isn't there. And unfortunately, a lot of men are taking their own lives. And this is also a growing problem amongst young males. So I would just like to put on record my support for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alderman Gary.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And just to record the Ulster Unionist Party's appreciation for Councillor Doyle bringing forward this here motion. Man do a great job in helping men who really have nowhere else to turn, and bringing the best out in them, trying to get support out to them, and trying to get them to talk about their problems as well, because we all bottle up. Plenty of men on here have done it in the past, bottled up, not says anything, and I'm sure we all get down at some stage. They're a great set of workers, but at the same time, we've seen where the health department has been able to help external people like that there in the city before, but now we've no function in Stormont. People like Man can't get that help. So I would ask the DUP to seriously consider their position, and let's get Stormont back up and running and get the money out to those people that most need it. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much for that. Folks, I'm not hearing any dissenting voices, so I can go to Councillor Doyle to sum up.
Much appreciated, Deputy Mayor, and thanks again to Conor Heaney for seconding the motion. Look, I think the work that Man do speaks for itself. We hear the support for them right across this chamber, and one point in particular struck me, and from Councillor Donnelly, there isn't less work for Man to do. There's more work for them to do, as well as plenty of other organisations, given the dire circumstances that we find ourselves in economically, socially, right across the north. So it's important that organisations like this are supported. I would say personally speaking that if £100 million wouldn't fund Man for the amount of work that they do, and that goes right, because our Alderman Wark mentioned La Dolce Vita, it's exactly the same story right across. As someone who works very closely with the staff, I have to say the dedication of the staff there, as in others, but certainly within Man, is unbelievable. People take phone calls all hours of the day and night from men who need support. That happens right across this city and district, and even as far away as places like Fermanagh. They go over and above. You couldn't pay them. So again, just want to put on record thanks to all those who spoke in favour, and I'm sure the organisation will be pleased that this council is behind them. Thank you.
So that was unanimously supported there, and thank you very much, Councillor Doyle, for bringing it forward. Our next motion is from Councillor Alex Duffy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to everybody for the warm welcome to my first full council meeting. I would like to just start by, as already said by Christopher and many others in the chamber today, and just pay tribute to Paul Fleming.
Sorry, Councillor Duffy, have you a seconder for that?
Any second there, Chair?
No, it's okay. I have one here in front of me waving. That's okay, Councillor Duffy, you can go on.
Okay, thank you. So I was just saying there, just as everybody else has already said, including Christopher, just paying tribute to Paul Fleming. Knowing Paul and being a party activist for many years, I've worked very closely with Paul within the Fáin, and I could see the outstanding work that Paul done without discrimination. He worked for everybody who contacted him. So definitely huge boots to fill, but I'm up to the challenge, and I'm very, very happy to hear that not every day does the meeting start like that it did today. So that's good news. So the motion in front of you, folks, is a project that I've been working on for a while as a community worker within Strathwell. On this now, I'm working closely with NEU Forum and Strathwell Community Association. And just as a point of interest, I am the chairperson of Strathwell Community Association. And what we're trying to do is sort of put a more life into this MUGA project. And sadly, the planning permission lapsed in 2020. So just going over a wee bit of history here. And to the 2012, the council presented the master plan to the Strathwell residents, what included the Strathwell Play Park, the Greenway, what is ongoing, and the MUGA, just in that order. Plan permission was secured in 2015 after negotiations with the EA, but sadly, as I say, 5 years later, there was no progress, and the plan permission lapsed in 2020. It was also within the Fáin Growth Plan as one of the key projects that was published in 2019. It is actually to be reviewed again in 2023. The need for the MUGA is clearly set out within the North of Ireland Neighbourhood Information Services, where it shows a huge growth in youth population, poor health, and the increased antisocial behaviour. The multi-use games area, as it is, I've been speaking to our local football club, what is the Lissahallie Football Club, who have no training facilities, so they have to actually go outside of the area to train because of the restrictions on grass pitches with council. I've spoke to our local GA club, Slack Manus, who are totally and supportive, along with the rugby club. So everybody is in great support of this for the multi-use games over, also across sport as well. So that is the motion, folks.
Councillor Duffy, I'm sorry, but everybody gets 3 minutes, but considering that you are new, I'm going to allow you another extra minute. So if you could sort of wind up what you're talking about, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You'll be glad to know that I'm not much of a long speaker like the rest of these. So I am summed up. So that's the motion in front of these folks, and I hope you'll be able to support it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Right, Councillor Norris.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing me in. We as a party and myself fully supports this motion. I grew up 100 metres away from where this MUGA is going to be. So I'm totally in the line with Councillor Duffy. It needs to be brought to the table. We need to get it sorted now and see what's happened and bring it on to the end. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Duffy for bringing this motion. I know this has been part of the Strathroy Community Plan and will be a great addition to the progress done so far. Because of the likes of the community groups, the Strathroy Community Association, the Youth Forum, as well as Tiny Tots and the Women's Centre. I think the progress that has been done so far, since that plan was presented back in 2012, there was the Strathroy Greenway, the play park, the cycle lane from Maydon, which extends right out to Eglinton, and as well as accessible play. I think this is all progress that has been done brilliantly because of the backing and the campaigning of local groups and with the support of council officers as well as councillors. I think now would be the perfect time for us to put a campaign together and give the support of the Mugga Pitch so that it does give that accessibility and promote a healthy and active lifestyle, as well as offering training to our football and our GAA teams. I think it's perfect that we put this on the agenda, that we make sure that this is something that's highlighted. And I must say, I did declare, Deputy Mayor, there that as an interest, I am an EA board member and I'll not ignore the financial struggles within the education system. And the EA has been asked in particular for a number of savings. So I think it does need to be a multiple agency approach and another strong campaign from all involved. And the Alliance Party is more than happy to play its part in this, and we believe children should have access to green and active spaces, shared spaces. So we're happy to support the motion and thank Councillor Duffy for his first motion here in the Chamber to be able to highlight the further aspirations of the Strathroy community in Ena. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and People Before Profit are happy to support the motion. It's more than a decade now since residents of Strathfoyle and the surrounding area talked about the legacy of neglect, and since then there's been investment into the area as a result of campaigning and the efforts of the community there. I think many people see the Mugga Pitch as the missing piece that can add to the greenway and the play park. And I think that we have to stand with the community and do all we can as a council to push this forward with the Education Authority. So we're happy to support and we welcome Councillor Alec Duffy's first motion to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. And I congratulate Councillor Duffy on bringing forward an issue of concern in his own DEA, which is as it should be. Some would say perhaps it's being parochial, but I would argue that it's what we're about. We should be in here representing in our area, and this is an ideal motion for that, and totally support it. I support it also on the basis of an experience that I'm having, and perhaps other councillors in my own area are having with regard to a community playgroup in Ardstraw, where they have property on, they are based on education property. And within that, the Education Authority have allowed a play area to simply deteriorate rather than keeping it up to a proper standard. So there is an issue within the EA that has to be addressed as to, what provision outside of the classroom are they prepared to provide for young people within any particular area, particularly, as Councillor Duffy outlines there, the rural areas. And I trust that a meeting can be arranged, and indeed that our representatives can discover what exactly are the Education Authority playing at. We know there's that shortfall, I think it's 100 million or something that's been quoted or been taken off their particular budget, but at the same time the Education Authority have a responsibility for the health and well-being of young people in our society, and that has to be kept on board. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Alderman Keith Kerrigan online.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me in. And apologies, I'm on my mobile phone, so I don't have access to the chat box there, so I wasn't able to put the message in. But we're content enough to support the motion. It's again, it's not my area, but I say when I looked into it, it's been sitting now a long time, and for the planning permission to have lapsed, it's not good enough. And again, whatever can be done to organise a meeting in regards to push this issue. And to be fair, Alderman Hussey has stolen his thunder a wee bit there in regards to the like of the Arts Straw issue and my own DEA, which I was going to raise. And again, we know all about pitches and getting stuff started. We know in regards to Sion Mills, the issues and various other pitches throughout and getting them up to a certain standard. So, as I say, we're more than content to support this issue, and that's all. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that. Folks, no further speakers. Councillor Duffy, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Ferguson for seconding the motion, and thank you to the rest of the speakers as well and your support. It'll be really appreciated by the people of Strathfoyle and the wider ENA, because that's really who's going to benefit from it. Because as many people have said, the rural isolation issue is what we're facing in the likes of Strathfoyle, Maydown, Campsie and areas like that, where there is lack of community facilities. Just a word of note, Strathfoyle does not have community facilities. We haven't got a community centre. There's nothing like that there, only the EA owned and controlled centre. So it's very welcome to hear the amount of support. And I think it is important, as Councillor Ferguson said, that the engagement with the EA as well, because the agreement was already made previously with the EA, so hopefully that can be done again and we can start moving this project along. And I know that the Lissahalli Football Club is very keen in getting involved in the stakeholder meeting, so if we can make that happen, that would be great. So thank you to the rest of the members for supporting it, and on behalf of the people of Strathfoyle and the wider ENA, thank you very much as well.
Thank you for that, Councillor Duffy. Look, there's no dissenting voices, so I take that as a unanimous. Moving on, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edwards, will be a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Barr.
Yep, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'll take the motion as read. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Let me bring this motion to Council this evening. Although the motion is in my name, I do believe it represents the majority of councillors here, especially those who attended Inter West Rail Lobby meetings before Christmas. Deputy Mayor, I do believe there's massive opportunities for rail expansion in the northwest and in the west, in particular for Strabane and Omagh. You have been without rail since the 1960s, which has created a massive infrastructure and connectivity neglect in the northwest of this island. Rail has to be part of the future of the northwest and the west, and we need that connectivity along with the vital upgrade of the A5 road. For me, Deputy Mayor, the issue of rail expansion isn't a nostalgic, romantic notion. It's something that's very achievable. And I know this through meeting with members of the campaign for Borders Rail in Scotland, who have done a remarkable job in successfully lobbying for the largest rail expansion in the UK for the past 100 years in a rural area. In Scotland, the Edinburgh to Tweed Bank route was opened in 2015 and saw great success of passenger numbers massively exceeding original forecasts. They reached their 10-year passenger targets within 2 years. The Scottish experience shows that we here can't just sit back and point at a gap on the map. We have to argue the environmental, the social and the economical benefits that rail expansion would bring to the northwest. We can have a similar experience to what we've seen in Scotland. I do believe there's political will to advance rail expansion here, but we need to drive this agenda forward, and that's why I brought this motion to Council this evening. We have made some great strides in terms of getting rail back on the agenda with our previous Infrastructure Minister, Nicola Mallon, along with our counterpart in the South, Eamon Ryan, announced an all-in strategic rail review. Unfortunately, this report has been stalled by the political stalemate in Stormont, which only compounds the need for our council to take action on this issue. My proposal requests that all neighbouring council to ours, so it's Donegal Council, Fermanagh and Omagh, Mid-Ulster, come together along with DFI to fund a study around the feasibility of reopening the former Great Northern Railway line, which closed decades ago. All councils have an interest in this, and I hope that we can come together with DFI to fund the study. This will be a massive initial step to reopen railways here. I know we are going through a rates process and finances are tight in council at the moment. This motion calls for these councils to come together with DFI to look at what funding opportunities that may be there. We already have an example of this, the Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon District Council. There's a feasibility study underway. It's due to report very soon, but this costs £60,000 with DFI providing over 80% of that.
Councillor Edwards, can I ask you to bring your remarks to
I'm aware that the British and Irish governments may be able to contribute to the spend. And finally, Mayor, just to mention it, I want to thank Into the West Railway Group, especially for their lobbying meetings held before Christmas. In particular, Jim McBride and Steve Bradley for their work on lobbying for railway expansion here, and I hope members can support the proposal. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillor McKinney.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. We will fully support this motion, and I'd just like to say there's been years and years of underinvestment in the infrastructure within the North West. And sometimes I think that the ministers in Belfast seem to think that the earth's flat and they'll fall off the edge when they get to Dungiven. But it's not true. I can vouch for that because I'm a Belfast man. But just another thing about the All-Island Rail Strategy North-South consultation was started November 21 and finished in January 22. And again, as Councillor Edwards has said there that down to not having a minister here in Stormont, we can't move it forward. I would also say the Alliance Party fully endorse also the West Lobby Group, under the West Lobby Group. And part of our New Deal, Green New Deal, states a 5-year plan working with the Irish Government to have increased frequency between Derry, London, Derry, Belfast, Dublin, Cork, and a high-speed line put in. So we fully support this motion, and thank you for bringing it.
Thank you for that. Online, Councillor Dan Kelly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I want to begin by thanking the mover of the motion for bringing this forward today and by reaffirming Sinn Féin's support for the restoration of our rail network. I do have a minor amendment that I want to table if you're content to accept that, and I have submitted it. Mayor, you can see it's just in relation to widening the scope really around the financing of any potential feasibility study.
I'll second that amendment.
Hey, folks, we have an amendment there which has been seconded by Councillor Jackson. Is there anybody who would wish to speak on the amendment?
Mayor, can I continue to speak?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, there's no doubting that the social, economic and psychological upheaval foisted upon us by partition was compounded by the subsequent removal of all but one of our railway lines. The consequences have been profound and have left lasting damage which we are still trying to resolve some 60 years later. As the Strategic Rail Review consultation states, 5 counties in Ulster on either side of the border, Donegal, Tyrone, Fermanagh, Monaghan and Cavan, have no connection to the rail network. The network's focus on Dublin and Belfast necessitates lengthy and circuitous routes for rail travel within and across many of the regions. In fact, when you look at the rail network map, you could almost include County Derry in that assessment. In Strabane, the consequences were disastrous for a thriving manufacturing and trading centre. People forget that the town was one of the best connected in Ireland, where once businesses were able to offer same-day delivery to any part of the island, overnight it became an outpost, isolated from well-established transport routes for our markets. I've stated before when speaking on this issue in the Chamber Incredibly, there are people in the south of our district who live closer to the railway station in Sligo than they do to the station in Derry. So while the presence of a single line to the city creates the impression of district connectivity on the rail network, as we all know, the reality is very far from ideal. Deputy Mayor, I don't intend to unnecessarily delay the meeting when the movers proposing a paper comes back to discuss this matter in some detail. But in terms of the thrust of the motion progressing support for funding of a feasibility study, I do welcome the push put on this by Minister John O'Dowd last autumn when, without preempting the outcome of the results of the All-Ireland Rail Review, he did ask his departmental officials at DFI to begin the process of exploring funding opportunities for a feasibility study into a new rail line between Derry and Portadown. And as a result of that, I'm presuming DFI officials are currently taking a lead in securing the necessary finance. Deputy Mayor, as witnessed by the attendance at the recent public meetings hosted by Into the West, who have been in the vanguard of this drive to restoring the rail network, there is widespread public support for this initiative, not least as we begin to transition towards more sustainable methods of transport, and an integrated rail network must be core to that. If you permit me, Mayor, just in relation to, I know there's an amendment not tabled, but in terms of the Clanmill amendment, we also have no issue with that. Council did not approve that application, and while we don't yet know the preferred option for the new rail link between Derry and Portadown, it would be short-sighted to preclude any route, even inadvertently, at this early stage. So, of course, Mayor, we will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Alderman Hussey.
Very briefly, I welcome the proposal from Councillor Edwards and indeed the amendment. Of course, on the first part, it talks about cross-border rail network, and the original network was cross-border. In fact, if you were coming, as I did quite often from Omagh through to the city here, to Londonderry, you come up the west bank of the Foyle. You were coming through Donegal. It was a cross-border line way back in the day. It is appropriate that we support the motion within a whole caveat of rationale that could be quoted, but it's where you look at the decarbonisation, et cetera, and it needs to be started now. We need to get the information now because it's not something that's going to be there in 2 or 3 years' time. It's a long-term project, but we need to establish the foundation upon which we're taking that process forward. And Councillor O'Neill has referred to the issue of housing being built on that line. There is a need that the route is identified and protected if we are to develop that going forward. Thanks to the proposer of both the original motion and the amendment. Well done.
Thank you for that. Councillor O'Neill, you've indicated to speak. Is it on the amendment? Yep.
No, I thought you'd asked, do I have an amendment?
No. Is it on the amendment?
No, sorry.
Get back to you. Online, Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And I would have had another very, very slight amendment, but I know you have to deal with this first. No, we're content enough with the amendment, content enough with the motion as it was. Councillor Edwards and Alderman Hussey, when we had a discussion there in St. Mulls there recently, and we are aware that the existing Great Northern Line, certain parts of it have been built on, certain parts of it have fallen into the river. So again, the exact line can't be used again. But we have no issue in looking to see what can be done to secure a route that it's kept then for that restriction involved on it and various others, because we had even discussed in that meeting as well in regard to greenways and the potential of that then alongside the railway line. So as I say, those issues are there, and as has Councillor Kelly's amendment till it there. The Great Northern Line run into Ballyshannon, I'd run on to Portadown, I'd run on to Cavan. So as I say, there's no issue then in regards to looking to see if we can get money out of the Dublin government as well. But I was only going to amend Deputy Mayor to include Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon.
I have to stop you there,
No
Alderman Kerrigan. This is just on the existing amendment, which is on the screen at the moment. Right, thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting us in, and thank you, Councillor Edwards, for bringing this forward. It is very timely. And I'm sure the irony won't be lost on most in this chamber, like when Stormont ripped up this line 50 years ago, and they made many promises at that time, and something that we discussed earlier, we were promised like an upgrade of the A5, and we're still waiting on that while they were ripping up the line. And we're also like the promises they made about the more investment that the likes of Strabane would get. Hasn't seen it. The city, stuff around the universities, we haven't seen it. And I think that the timely fashion of this motion is we need to wake up and smell the coffee. And the irony being, 50 odd years later, 60 odd years later, 70 odd years later, Stormont's closed. And that's the irony. And it's been closed mainly for the past 4 years. And while we're witnessing this, I don't believe there's too many people out there waiting on Stormont to open up again. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Alderman Wark.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and fully support the motion here brought on from Councillor Edwards. But as previous, he mentioned too, obviously the A5, the difficulties, the infrastructure here in the whole Northwest. I know through the Northwest Strategy meetings, along with Donegal Council, the Irish Government, the Executive, there's talks about obviously into the West all the time, but I personally feel in my lifetime there'll be still talking about it, and I'm long gone to be still talking about it in this chamber. We only have to look at the A6 at the minute. Absolutely hectic. They don't give in. You know, I honestly thought by spring last year we would have had that done. You only drive up and down that road to Belfast. They don't give in. It's a one lane there. There's been going on now, 4.5 years, and basically it just feels at the minute there's no end in sight on it. And with A5, goodness knows, you know, so the whole infrastructure side, the roads need sorted, yes, 100%. Then the railway system needs sorted. Then, so hopefully it's good council now bringing these motions forward and just constantly keep at it. But fully support Councillor Stephen Edwards' motion here. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillor Edwards, you looking to come in on the amendment? Yep.
Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, just on the amendment, and happy to accept those points. I don't think it. I think those issues were. I don't think it adds or takes away anything from the intent of the motion, in all honesty, and maybe it tidies up the language. But I'm happy enough to accept them, Deputy Mayor. Yep, and SDLP are happy to accept the amendments. I'll come in again when I'm winding on the motion, but yeah, SDLP are happy to accept. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Online, Councillor Raymond Barr.
Thank you, Mayor. I welcome this motion and this motion and amendment, and thank Councillor Edwards for bringing it. The importance of a real infrastructure link in the Northwest with the rest of Ireland cannot be overstated. As a result of what to me was a political decision to end railway connectivity to Strabane in 1965, I think it was. That decision exacerbated the already abysmal social and economic situation in Strabane and the surrounding areas. The reintroduction of the Northwest Rail Corridor is essential if this area is to progress and prosper. Thank you again to Councillor Edwards.
Thank you for that, Councillor Barr. Folks, I haven't heard any dissenting voices, really, so I would... Oh, I did? So, no, right. So I would say that the amendment has been unanimously accepted. Councillor O'Neill, you were looking to come in?
Yeah, I have another amendment. Part of it I have already shared with Councillor Edwards. And the other part I've already shared with everyone, but I'm bringing it here now. I have tidied it up a wee bit to make it shorter.
Happy to second that.
Can I speak to it now?
Yeah, go ahead, Maeve.
Great. So yeah, declaration of interest as well as a member of Under the West. But yeah, I think the argument for rail has been won long ago in this council. You know, not just as councillors, but, you know, corporate council as well. I know how hard everyone is working to, you know, bring about the reality of improved infrastructure here to the northwest, you know, not just for safety, given the discussions around the A5 road, like, you know, rail is so much safer than roads, value for money, the social good, an equalising factor that rail brings, and also the environmental good. And it feels like we're very stuck right now, given the stalemated Stormont, and then as a result, the withholding of the All Ireland Rail Review. But you know, the clock is ticking with regards to the Clan Mill development. They've put a clear timeline out in front of us, and we need to make sure that that, you know, whatever decision is made around this railway track, that nothing is put in the way of it. The time is ticking, obviously, in terms of the climate crisis and in terms of the growing inequality that we're facing here, and you know, it's really important that we ascertain the feasibility. There's two options to get from Derry to Strabane or Loughborough. It's either on the northern side or on the southern side. And, you know, the people and the engineers, the departments, north and south, need to figure out what side that they're backing. It would be great if they were backing both, but that decision needs to be made with haste if we're to actually realise this goal of improving rail into Derry, into the northwest, and connecting Derry to Letterkenny and onwards to Portadown. And I wish I was old enough, like Alderman Hussey, to have experienced what it felt like before, but I hope I don't have to live too long in order to actually see this happen. And it's so frustrating to experience and live with the shabby infrastructure that we have to live with here. We should be talking about electrification of lines, not just the reopening of lines. But you know, we need to do all that we can do as a council and support Under the West and lobbying for rail, because it's not just going to happen because it makes sense. It's going to happen because we need to keep piling on the pressure. And just to say, to commend Under the West, and as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, Emma McCann in particular, like in my boy, he was relentless in making sure that case was heard. If without Emma McCann, we would not have a railway line in the Derry, full stop. So just a word of commendation to himself. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Maeve. Any speakers on this amendment, which has been seconded? Stephen.
Yep, again, thank Councillor Neil for bringing this. Raises two very important issues. I think the Clan Mill land will be very important to feasibility study, so she rightly measures that, and also the funding opportunities that are there. She's right to highlight that the British government fund and see clarity around that, but happy to support the amendment, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that. Alderman Hussey.
Just very briefly, thanks for reminding me of my numerous birthdays. The protection of a prospective route is vital. You know, if the route isn't there, then you can't go anywhere. So it is the identification and then the protection of what will be the rail bed, and that's what's contained within the amendment. So there's absolutely no hesitation in supporting that.
Thank you for that. I don't see any other indicated speakers. Councillor Kerrigan, I'll get to you shortly. We'll first deal with this. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just to say that Councillor Kelly already outlined our party's support for this amendment.
So, no dissenting voices. I can take that the amendment has passed. Thank you. Alderman Kerrigan, you're looking for a further amendment.
Very briefly, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, very briefly. What was, now I apologise, I don't have access to the screen, but what was in the original amendment, the fourth paragraph, where it had made mention of Donegal County Council, Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, and Mid-Ulster District Council, I know that has been amended since, but after Mid-Ulster District Council, I would have just wanted included Armagh City, Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council, because for ultimately the Great Northern Line, as I stated, did go on to Portadown, and so if you can get them to Parkway Lockett towards the feasibility study, I know Councillor Edwards has mentioned they've already done that on different occasions. As I say, if we can get them to do that, so that's what I would be proposing as an amendment. Just thank you, Deputy Mayor.
And I would second that, Deputy Mayor Morris.
We're just putting that into so that everybody can see it. Don't see an issue with it, but maybe you want to speak.
Yeah, I suppose I have no problem with the amendment. I know that in previous conversations with the Rail Lobby Group and Armagh, Banbridge, Craigavon Council, because they're doing their own feasibility study, I think they're very much focused on that themselves. And, you know, I don't think they're at the stage where they did want to work with Into the West anyway. But, you know, I think we should extend the invitation, most definitely. But they just might be, they might not want to engage just now.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yep, I agree with Councillor O'Neill, and they are conducting their own feasibility study, but I have no issue with the invitation being extended to them. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and I think everybody's in agreement, so I'll waste no further time. That amendment carries. So can we move on? It's to the substantive motion. And I take it everybody is in the same frame of mind in the chamber, online. Yep. So we can say that's passed.
Councillor Edwards to sum up.
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Edwards, if you want to sum up, I do apologize.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And it's great to see the courage and conviction in the chamber. This is a very important issue. And a friend of mine actually from this city in work, he said to me this morning that Spain have opened another high-speed railway line last week. They're advancing high-speed rail. We're dealing with like the minor provision here, like the lowest of the low provision, like basic railway expansion, which is very, very hard to believe. But it's great to see and hear everyone's support. And as outlined by some speakers, railways closed here 60 years ago. We've had nothing but deprivation, unemployment and poverty. Rail is part of the plan to get out of that, along with the expansion, or along with the upgrade of the vital A5 road. So we have to thank everyone for the support for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So moving on. Yeah, it is 6 o'clock, but it's Councillor Logue, so it should be quick. Let's go. Come on, folks. Let's see what we can get done. Okay, Councillor Lowe, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And yes, I will be quick. I don't intend to maybe even do me 3 minutes, but look, everybody, this notice of motion, I'll just take it as a thread there on the screen. But many people would have heard me speak about these issues before in council, and in fact they would know about them myself, and there is massive flooding issues for many years in all these areas, and it only takes not even very heavy rainfall, but heavy enough rainfall for these areas to be flooded, and indeed homes have been flooded in the past. So all I'm asking is that these areas are included within the multi-agency working group that has already been set up, and reports are brought back to as well. I just want to say it's not acceptable that the department's answer to these problems to me has been they'll address the issues as and when they arise without committing to a lasting solution. So basically that's it, Mayor. I just would be asking all the councillors to please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Patricia. Councillor McGinley.
Deputy Mayor, I am happy to second the motion, but I also want to propose a slight amendment, just to include in the list of streets at the Little Diamond. Tricia's laid out our party position. It's just that that street was missed out. So if I can propose that as a slight amendment, I don't know if I can get a say. Is that you seconding that proposal, Brian? Thank you.
Sir Doyle, would you like to go ahead?
Thanks, Mayor. Sorry, Deputy Mayor. Fully in support of this, and I don't often give Champagne councillors credit, but I have to say Patricia's been working on this for as long as I can remember. My family's from the Brandywell, and they're from Bluebell Hill Gardens, I should say, and these issues have been going on for years. And DFI and its predecessor have completely ignored the issue. I know that there have been many residents out on nights where there hasn't even been heavy rain, particularly around Foy Road, where the gullies and the drains have been completely overwhelmed. And it's got to the stage where this is almost expected now in the areas that have been outlined. It's totally unacceptable, and totally absolutely commend for Patricia for her work on this, because she's been doing it for a long time. So more than happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Online, Councillor John Boyle.
Again, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Logue for bringing this forward. I think all that needs to be said has been said in relation to this. It's been an ongoing issue and a problem for decades. In truth, we all have family members who have lived in that particular part of the city. My granny, God bless her, used to live down in that part of the city at one time, and I, as a wee boy, remember wading through the water just to go and see my grandmother, and that was in the 1960s. I'm giving my age away a wee bit. I'm starting to feel like Derek Hussey sometimes, because he always goes, "Oh, yeah, you're giving your age away," but anyway, I'm not ashamed of it. So look, just to say, on behalf of the SDLP, entirely supportive of bringing this particular part of our city into those particular elements of the conversation. Actually, I suppose shamefully we hadn't done it before, so it's important that we have done it now. But if I could just add one small amendment to this, Deputy Mayor.
I'm sorry, just at the moment, John, you can't, because there's an amendment there. So if you can just hold fire on that.
Well, okay. Well, then perhaps after we've added in the Little Diamond, you'll come back to me and I will add in a further small amendment that I don't imagine anybody's going to disagree with, in truth, but I understand the concept. Clearly, one amendment at a time. Deputy Mayor, thank you, and come back to me if you can, please.
I will, certainly. Councillor McKinney.
Thank you, Mayor, for that, man. It's just really to say I fully support the motion that's in front of us, and we're going through a terrible situation with regards to Ivy Mead and trying to get answers from a DFI. But we're all sort of singing off the same hymn sheet, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and People Before Profit are happy to support this motion. I think this is a really serious and ongoing issue, and unfortunately, given that we're on a highway to climate hell, it's only going to get worse because, particularly for the Brandywell area, I think a lot of it is below, sea level, and I know our climate officer has done presentations before about predictions for sea level rising, and there needs to be a proper plan in place to protect the residents of this area, to protect the integrity of this area, and a lot of the developments that are happening there. So unfortunately, I think we're far better addressing this now and looking when we address this at the next 10, 20 years as well, because things are just going to get worse. Thanks.
Councillor Donnelly.
Happy to support the motion. Thank Councillor Logue for bringing it. A lot of the areas there, of all the areas there, but are areas that have been plagued with serious difficulties, we flooding, and it's not fair on the residents, and it continues this year after year. And I think part of the problem there, and it's dealt with the area around Old City Court, not Old City, and there's a serious issue with Brayhead Road regards flooding and torrents of water coming down it. I don't know if it's the responsibility of roads or what, it's the farmland on either side of it. But recently I've been looking at it, and it has just been, there's a vast amount of water that has come down the Brayhead Road and on the Letterkenny Road. And unless that's dealt with, Deputy Mayor, it could be only a matter of time before there's a serious accident in the Letterkenny Road, because it's a main road, and it's used by a lot of heavy traffic. And I think also part of that problem is the expanding of social housing in Craigan. I don't believe that the infrastructure is designed when Craigan was built originally. We now have McGowan and Ballymcgowan, and we've got Swolly Gardens and Glassett Park and all of that. We have plans. We have development of Shandolans. And it's my understanding that there's a number of our developments planned, social housing developments planned in that area. Unless this matter is dealt with as a matter of urgency, the problem for people in these areas, in my opinion, is it's just going to get worse. So happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And online, Alderman Nuri Morris, I do apologise.
You're okay, Deputy Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Logue for bringing forward this amendment. I wish to welcome the motion and support the content. I suppose I have to say that through Gary Middleton's MLA office, I understand the serious impact that the flooding has had on the Eglinton, Drumahoe and Ivy Mead areas, as well as throughout the city. However, I feel that this needs to be opened up to all areas that were affected by flooding within the city. I personally was on hand and helped the residents of Lincoln Courts and Clooney Estate who were impacted by the recent flooding, and having spoken to many of the residents, I know that this is not the first time that their homes have been impacted by flooding. Having had a meeting with Anne, the new Council's Resilience Officer, I have highlighted these areas which seem to have been forgotten when it comes to discussions around the flooding. I also want to welcome the impact on businesses across the council areas has been taken into consideration, as I know they have been unable to access the council aid grant of £1,000 in order to help with the clean-up of the water entering their premises. And just lastly, I would just want to say, due to the recurrent of freak and adverse weather conditions and the climate change, it is important now more than ever that a long-term solution is found to address floodings in these particular areas. And I know we're dealing with the amendment that's on the table, Deputy Mayor. However, on the basis of the motion that's put in front of us on the amendment, our party is happy to support this motion with an amendment to include Lincoln Courts, Clooney Estate and all other areas. So that
I'm going to stop you the way I did, Councillor Boyle. So that's the amendment as it is now on the board. I'm not hearing any dissenting voices, so I can take that as being passed. Yep. I am going to go back to Councillor Boyle, who has been waiting. Councillor Boyle, I believe you have a further amendment.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, and it's fairly straightforward and it's simple enough. And as I said earlier, I think everybody will understand why I'm coming at it. and why I'm coming at it the way I'm coming at it. Can we go to paragraph 3? This council calls. Can we change calls to rights to? Calls on and rights to, because clearly then that is a directive from ourselves as elected representatives. So take out calls and rights to and take out on. And that's a directive from ourselves for our officers, gives them an opportunity to, because we can call all we want, but I'm not entirely sure anybody from DFI might be watching this meeting or reading back through the minutes, but they will now because we're going to write to them. That's it. Deputy Mayor, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Boyle, thank you.
I don't envisage anybody's going to disagree with me.
Councillor Boyle, is there a second? Yeah, there is a seconder for that amendment. I'm looking around the room here and I don't see anybody shaking their head, so I can take it that that has been unanimously accepted. Now I am sorry, I'm going to Alderman McNorris with a further amendment.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to put a small amendment onto the end of that, so that it just reads all the areas as stipulated, but I also want to include Lincoln Courts, Clooney Estate, and all or any other areas that have been impacted by the flooding.
Thank you for that, and that has been seconded by Alderman Guy. Do we all have areas in our... Okay, folks, I'm seeing, okay, Councillor Gallagher.
Oh, not on the amendment, no.
You know what, this can go on all night with everybody having their pet areas that they want included. Can I just say, initially, as was stated to me by somebody else, this person put a motion forward and did it in good faith for their particular area of choice. We all have that opportunity to put a motion forward. So I'm only saying that, we'll be here all night putting on our pet areas. On the amendment, everybody is nodding. Can I take that as being accepted? Sorry, Alderman Hussey, go ahead.
It's just, you've rightly highlighted, Deputy Mayor, that we could add and add and add and add and add. And I wonder within, I'm presuming the motion will pass because everybody will want their own areas. But I'm wondering if it would be possible when contact is made with DFI, that DFI would be asked if they could consider establishing a series of DEA meetings for representatives specifically on flooding issues. And that brings everybody on board. I appreciate, as you rightly say, a motion has genuinely been put on the table, and it's a very welcome motion from that particular area. But when contact is made with DFI, could they consider a day when they would have a series? Oh, now that's not a proposal. It's just, I'm just making the suggestion.
I appreciate that, Councillor Hussey, and I think that is tied up with the last few words of this amendment, which is, and all other areas impacted by the flooding. So that covers everywhere from Culmore to Castledurg to wherever. So can I have...
Mayor, can I just come in?
Yes, you can. Okay.
You see, I wasn't going to talk about a Pacific area. But what I was going to talk about is particularly areas that have been repeatedly flooded and those homes that this council has supported through the grant mechanism. That if that was included, we would be talking at key houses that are at high risk of flooding. You know, and instead of saying broad streets, that if their houses, and we know houses, particularly in Strabane, who have been repeatedly flooded and who have repeatedly received support through the grant system. That if that's included in it, then we will be much better identifying rather than saying a long list of names. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, take on that comment, Councillor Gallagher, and a good valid one. So there's the amendment. Everybody happy? Yep. Thank you. And that passes unanimously, all online as well. So listen, folks, I'm calling it a wrap here. Oh, sorry. Right, Patricia, go ahead.
I'll be very, very quick this time. No, just to thank everyone for their support in this motion, and I'm sure it will give all the residents impacted by these issues some hope. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Patricia, and once again, apologies. Folks, that's it. There obviously will resume full council tomorrow at 2 o'clock here in Chamber, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and very well done.